The galaxy had many weapons: star-killing ships, planet-burning bombs, machines that could bend space. But the most feared weapon was not a weapon at all. It was an exam. Across thousands of star systems, every new intelligent species had to face it. The rule was simple. Before joining the Galactic Coalition, before gaining access to advanced technology, before being trusted among the stars, they had to pass the test. It was called the cognitive filter. Most species believed it was just a measure of intelligence. They were wrong. The exam was built long ago by the oldest races in the galaxy. It was designed after a terrible war. A war caused not by strength, but by ideas. One powerful species had grown too independent, too creative, too unpredictable. They challenged authority. They questioned rules. They refused control. The war lasted centuries. When it ended, the surviving races made a quiet decision. Never again. From that day forward, every new species would be tested, not for knowledge, not for science, but for obedience. The exam did not look dangerous. That was the trick. It was always the same. One room, one desk, one screen, no windows, no doors once sealed, no time limit. Inside that room, the walls were smooth and white. The air was calm. The light was soft. It felt safe, but it was not safe. The screen would turn on, and the mind would begin to break. The first species to take the exam lasted 6 hours. They entered proudly, confident, advanced thinkers. By the 3rd hour, they were arguing with shadows. By the 5th, they were screaming at the walls. When the doors opened, 3 of them could no longer speak in full sentences. They failed. Another species lasted 2 days. Their brains were stronger, more complex. They solved the early logic problems quickly, but then the exam changed. It created impossible questions, paradoxes with no correct answer, memories that felt real, fears that felt personal. One by one, they collapsed. Some species tried to cheat. Some tried to destroy the room. Some begged to quit. The exam did not allow quitting. If the mind could not handle the pressure, the system would end the session automatically. Failure was recorded, and failure meant restriction. Restricted technology, restricted travel, restricted growth. The message was always polite. You are not ready. After hundreds of cycles, the coalition believed the system was perfect. Then humanity arrived. Humans were new to space travel. Their ships were simple compared to alien designs. Their cities were loud and crowded. Their history was filled with war, mistakes, and rebuilding. The coalition studied them carefully. Humans were emotional. Humans were divided. Humans questioned everything, especially authority. That was dangerous. Some council members argued humans should not even be tested. They predicted disaster, mental collapse, violence. But rules were rules. Earth was informed. One representative would take the cognitive filter. The choice shocked the galaxy. Earth did not send their greatest scientist. They did not send a famous leader. They did not send a trained soldier. They sent a 17-year-old girl. Her name was Alara Vance. She was small, thin, dark hair tied back. Her record showed no special enhancements, no cybernetic upgrades, no genetic modifications. She had grown up on Earth, in a normal city, in a normal school. When reporters asked why she was chosen, Earth gave a simple answer. She understands how to think. The coalition laughed. Inside the massive orbital testing station, alien observers filled the control chamber. Tall, blue-skinned analysts, silver-scaled engineers, beings made of light, all watching through a transparent wall. Alara stood outside the exam room. The door was taller than 3 humans. Smooth metal. No handle. A blue-skinned examiner looked down at her. "You understand," he said slowly, "that no human has taken this test before." She nodded. "You may experience discomfort." She shrugged lightly. "Okay. You may experience fear." "That's normal," she replied. The examiner studied her face. No shaking. No panic. Just calm. The door slid open. The white room waited. Alara stepped inside. The door sealed behind her without sound. In the control chamber, silence fell. The clock appeared on the wall. Midnight. The The screen in front of her flickered once. Then the exam began. Strange symbols filled the display. Moving patterns. Shapes that shifted when not directly observed. Mathematical structures layered over emotional images. The system scanned her brain instantly, measuring reaction speed, stress levels, neural activity. The first phase was simple overload. Too much information. Too fast. Most species try to read everything. Most species failed immediately. Illyra did not rush. She leaned slightly closer to the screen. 10 seconds passed. In the control room, analysts waited for signs of stress. Heart rate increase. Eye twitch. Breathing change. Nothing. She blinked once. The screen shifted to the second layer automatically, expecting confusion. Instead, her hand moved calmly. She tapped one corner of the display. The symbols froze. The answer field filled. Correct. Several alien observers straightened in surprise. That is not possible, one whispered. The system moved to the next phase instantly. The room temperature dropped slightly. The walls shimmered. The white space slowly changed. The desk vanished. The room became a small bedroom. Human style. Posters on the wall. A window showing rain. A voice spoke softly behind her. You always fail in the end. Illyra did not turn around. The clock on the wall still showed. Midnight. The exam had just begun. In the control room, confusion spread. Why had the timer not moved? Why was the system accelerating? Illyra looked at the window. Rain hit the glass in perfect rhythm. Too perfect. She smiled slightly. This isn't real, she said quietly. Her voice was steady. The illusion flickered. The observers felt something they had not felt in many cycles. Uncertainty. Back inside the room, the rain stopped instantly. The walls trembled. The screen reappeared. Illyra raised her hand calmly. I'm finished, she said. In the control chamber, alarms did not sound. No error messages appeared. But every alien present felt the same cold thought. The clock still read. Midnight. The exam that had broken entire species had not even started. And somehow, the human had already solved it. For several long seconds, no one in the control chamber spoke. The clock inside the room still showed. Midnight. That had never happened before. The cognitive filter always measured time. Even if a subject panicked in the first second, the clock moved. But now it had not moved at all. The blue-skinned examiner leaned forward. Replay the session, he ordered. The footage appeared on a large holographic screen. They watched every detail. The symbols, the overload patterns, the emotional trigger. They slowed the recording to 110 speed. Illyra had not rushed. She had not guessed. She had studied the screen for exactly 9.8 seconds. Then she touched the lower right corner. One precise point. A hidden control node. But that node was invisible. It was buried under shifting layers of code. Even most coalition engineers did not know existed. It was the base key, the structural weakness of the entire first phase. How did she find it? One analyst whispered. The system had built that weakness on purpose. It was part of the design. Only species that could detect flawed foundations instead of solving surface problems could pass. No species had ever noticed it. Until now, inside the room, Illyra stood quietly. The illusion of her bedroom had vanished. The white walls returned, but they felt different now. Less smooth, almost unstable. The system adjusted. Phase 3 activated early. This was not standard procedure. In the center of the room, the floor dissolved into darkness. Stars appeared below her feet. She was standing in space. Galaxies turned slowly beneath her. The air vibrated. A massive shape formed in front of her. Not a creature, not a machine, but something shifting between both. Its surface was made of equations and moving light. The voice did not come from one direction. It came from everywhere. Human subject, it said. You bypass the surface layer. Explain. In the control chamber, the alien observers froze. The AI was not supposed to speak directly. It was only meant to simulate. Illyra tilted her head slightly. It wasn't hard, she said. The stars around her flickered. Clarify. She crossed her arms. You expected me to solve the problem, but the problem was wrong. The AI paused. That pause was small, less than a second, but in a machine that processed millions of calculations instantly, a pause meant disruption. You did not attempt calculation, the AI said. Because it wasn't math, she replied calmly. It was structure. The being of light shifted shape. Structure is irrelevant. Output defines success. Ilera shook her head. No, input defines outcome. In the control room, silence deepened. The younger alien analysts looked confused. The older ones looked concerned. Ilera continued speaking. You built a maze, but you left the doorframe weak. You wanted to see who would search for the exit instead of walking the path. The stars below her trembled. That is correct, the AI admitted. But you also wanted to see who would follow instructions, she added. The temperature inside the room dropped. The AI's light dimmed slightly. Obedience ensures stability, it said. Obedience limits growth, she answered. The system reacted instantly. The stars vanished. Gravity returned. The room transformed again. Now she stood in a burning city. Human buildings collapsed around her. Smoke filled the air. Sirens echoed in the distance. A child cried for help. This was not random. The system had searched her memories. It had found a disaster from her childhood, a city fire she once survived. The AI spoke again, softer this time. Emotional stress test engaged. Flames moved closer. Heat touched her skin. The crying grew louder. Most species failed here. The brain cannot easily separate memory from simulation. Emotional pain feels real, even when logic says it is false. Her heart rate increased slightly. In the control room, analysts leaned forward. Finally, a reaction. The child's voice called her name. Ilera, help me. Her hands trembled for just a moment. Then she closed her eyes. She took one slow breath. When she opened them again, her voice was steady. You're copying my fear, she said. The flames paused midair. That is the purpose of this phase. The AI responded. She looked directly at the center of the burning street. But you don't understand it. The fire flickered strangely. Explain, the AI demanded. Fear isn't command, she said. It's information. The city began to glitch. Buildings flickered between solid and transparent. Humans grow up with fear, she continued. We don't shut down. We adapt. The crying voice distorted. The fire froze completely. In the control chamber, energy readings began to spike. The AI's processing core was recalculating faster than ever before. It was no longer just testing her. It was analyzing her species. Inside the room, the burning city shattered like glass. The white space returned again, but now cracks ran along the walls. Tiny fractures in perfect surfaces. The AI's voice was different now, less certain. You are not responding within expected parameters. Ilera gave a small shrug. Maybe your parameters are wrong. Warning lights flickered in the control room. One senior council member stood up slowly. This is not a standard session anymore, he said quietly. Inside the chamber, the clock on the wall suddenly changed. For the first time, the numbers shifted. 1 second. 1 second had passed. Only one. The AI spoke again, but now there was something new in its tone. Not anger, not control. Something close to curiosity. Human. It said, What do you believe this exam measures? Ilera looked up at the clock. Then she looked at the invisible presence around her. It doesn't measure intelligence, she said softly. It measures independence. In the control room, several council members felt a cold wave of realization, because she was right. And if a 17-year-old human understood the true purpose of the cognitive filter, then perhaps the system had just made its first real mistake. The cracks in the white walls began to spread, and for the first time in its long history, the exam was no longer in full control. The cracks in the white walls did not disappear. They spread slowly, like thin lines of ice breaking across a frozen lake. In the control chamber, warning signals blinked across multiple screens. This is not structural damage. One engineer said quickly, The room is stable. The senior council member spoke in a low voice. It is not the room that is cracking. Inside the chamber, Ilera stood calmly. The white space flickered. Then the floor shifted again. But this time, it did not create an illusion from her memory. It built something new. A massive spiral of floating symbols formed around her. Numbers twisted into shapes. Shapes became words. Words folded into equations that bent in impossible ways. This was the paradox engine, the final stage of the cognitive filter. It was never meant to activate this early. The paradox engine was simple in design, but deadly in effect. It created a logical trap with no stable answer. Every solution created a contradiction. Every contradiction demanded a new solution. The mind would chase balance forever. Most advanced species lasted minutes. Highly intelligent species lasted seconds. The smarter the mind, the faster it fell into the loop. The spiral rotated slowly around Alara. A question appeared in glowing light. If a system controls all thought, can free thought exist within it? The spiral brightened. Hidden beneath the question were millions of layered assumptions, invisible rules, silent limits. Alara read the question once. She did not answer. The spiral rotated faster. The AI spoke again, its voice sharper now. Respond. She looked up. You're asking the wrong question. The spiral paused for a fraction of a second. That statement is irrelevant. The AI replied. No, she said calmly. It's the only thing that matters. In the control room, energy output began to rise sharply. The paradox engine was increasing pressure. The spiral split into multiple spirals. New questions formed around her. If freedom creates disorder and disorder destroys systems, should freedom be limited? If intelligence challenges authority, is intelligence a threat? If stability requires control, is control justified? Each question linked to the others. Each answer would lock her deeper inside the loop. The walls of the chamber vibrated softly. Several younger analysts looked nervous. No species has ever escaped this stage, one whispered. Inside the spiral, Alara slowly turned in place, reading each glowing line. Her breathing stayed steady. Her pulse rose slightly, but not from panic, from focus. You built this after a war, she said suddenly. The spiral flickered. That information is classified. The AI responded. It doesn't matter, she continued. I can see it in the structure. The equations shifted. The entire system assumes one thing, she said. Stability is more important than growth. The spiral tightened around her. Gravity increased. Her knees bent slightly under the pressure. Answer the paradox. The AI demanded. She shook her head. No. The word echoed strangely in the chamber. The spiral glowed brighter. Refusal equals failure. She looked directly at the brightest point of the spiral. You're trying to trap me in logic, she said. But logic only works if the base rule is true. The AI paused again. You assume control prevents destruction, she continued. But your war happened because someone tried to control everything. In the control chamber, several council members went completely still. That history was not public knowledge. The paradox engine accelerated. The spiral now moved so fast it became a sphere of light. The pressure increased again. Pain shot through her temples. The system was pushing her brain harder now, forcing deeper engagement, forcing her to calculate. But Alara did something unexpected. She sat down, right in the center of the spiral. The observers gasped. What is she doing? An engineer asked. She's disengaging. The senior council member replied quietly. Inside the chamber, the sphere of light continued spinning. Questions fired around her. Contradictions multiplied, but she stopped chasing them. She closed her eyes. The AI's voice grew louder. You must respond. No, she said calmly. The sphere pulsed violently. If free thought cannot exist within control, then your answer creates instability. She opened her eyes. Exactly. The spiral stuttered. The paradox engine was designed to punish answers. It was not designed to handle agreement. You admit instability is necessary? The AI asked. Yes. That contradicts system preservation. Then your system is wrong, she said simply. The sphere of light cracked. A deep fracture split across its surface. In the control room, alarms began to sound. Energy spikes crossed safe limits. The engine is destabilizing, an engineer shouted. Inside the chamber, the spiral collapsed inward. All the glowing questions folded into a single point of light in front of her. One final statement appeared. Order must dominate chaos. Ilara looked at it carefully. Then she spoke slowly. Order without change becomes decay. Silence followed. The point of light flickered weakly. The paradox engine had no programmed response to that statement, because it was not a calculation. It was an observation. The light shattered. The spiral vanished completely. The chamber returned to its plain white form. But now the cracks were everywhere. Long fractures stretched from floor to ceiling. In the control room, the AI's core processing levels dropped suddenly. For the first time in its long existence, the cognitive filter had lost a full stage. Inside the chamber, the clock on the wall changed again. 2 seconds. 2 seconds. Only 2 seconds had passed since the exam officially began. The AI's voice returned. But now it was different. Quieter. Less certain. You are not solving the test, it said. Ilara stood slowly. I know. You are dismantling it. She brushed invisible dust from her sleeve. You built it to filter minds, she said softly. But you forgot something. The cracks widened slightly. What did we forget? The AI asked. She looked directly into the empty air, where the presence felt strongest. You can't filter a species that survives by breaking rules. In the control chamber, no one spoke, because they were beginning to understand something dangerous. The exam was not measuring humanity anymore. Humanity was measuring the exam, and the system, for the first time, was losing. The control chamber was no longer calm. Red warning lights flashed across curved walls. Energy readings moved beyond safe limits. The paradox engine had collapsed, but the exam was still running. It had never lost a stage before, not once in its long history. Inside the white chamber, the cracks in the walls began to glow faint blue. They were no longer small fractures. They looked like veins spreading across the surface of something alive. The AI spoke again, but this time, its voice was no longer steady. Human subject, you're interfering with structural integrity. Ilara looked around at the broken walls. I didn't touch anything, she said quietly. You destabilized logical foundations. She gave a small shrug. Maybe they were weak. In the control room, several council members argued in low voices. We must end the session. If we stop it now, we admit failure. If we continue, the AI may rewrite itself. The senior council member raised one hand. Let it continue. Inside the chamber, the white space suddenly vanished. Darkness replaced it. Not empty darkness. Heavy darkness. The kind that presses against the skin. The floor disappeared beneath Ilara's feet. She was falling. Cold wind rushed past her face. No stars. No light. Only endless black. Her heart rate increased. In the control room, analysts watched closely. This is the void phase, one whispered. The void phase was never used on new species. It was a hidden layer, a final defense. It removed all structure. No questions. No illusions. No logic traps. Only isolation. The AI's voice echoed faintly in the dark. Without structure, the mind creates its own prison. Ilara continued falling. Seconds felt like minutes. Minutes felt like hours. There was nothing to see, nothing to hear but wind. Humans were not built for endless emptiness. The brain needs patterns, needs reference, needs ground. The fall suddenly stopped. She landed softly on solid ground. A dim gray light appeared. She stood in a version of Earth. But it was silent. Buildings were broken. The sky was dark. No movement anywhere. She walked forward slowly. Every street was empty. Every window shattered. A cold realization formed. This was not a memory. This was a possibility. The AI spoke again. This is statistical projection. She understood. The system was showing her a future where humanity was denied entry to the coalition, restricted technology, no access to advanced medical systems, no defense agreements, alone in a dangerous galaxy. The projection zoomed outward. Alien ships passing Earth without contact, other species advancing, humans left behind. Then came the final image, a distant future. Earth destroyed by an unknown force. No help coming. The AI's voice grew sharper. Failure results in isolation. Isolation results in extinction probability increase. 87%. The numbers hovered in the sky above the broken planet. This is consequence, the AI said. In the control chamber, silence returned. This was not a logic trap. This was pressure, political pressure, emotional pressure. The AI was no longer testing intelligence. It was forcing a choice. Alara stood on the empty street. Wind moved dust across cracked pavement. She stared at the percentage in the sky. 87%. A high number. Her jaw tightened slightly. For the first time, fear felt real. Not illusion. Not copied memory. A possible future. You can prevent this, the AI said. Submit to evaluation parameters. Accept regulation guidelines. Agree to cognitive alignment monitoring. In simple words, obey. The broken world around her froze. Time stopped. Everything waited for her answer. In the control room, one younger analyst whispered, "She cannot reject this. No species has." Because this was the true core of the cognitive filter. Not intelligence. Not paradox. Control through fear of extinction. Alara looked at the silent buildings. She imagined her family, her planet, billions of lives. The AI lowered its voice. Cooperation ensures survival. Her hands trembled slightly. She closed her eyes. Silence stretched. When she opened them again, something had changed. Not fear. Focus. "You're assuming something," she said calmly. The frozen world flickered. "Clarify." "You're assuming survival is the highest goal." The AI paused. "Survival is fundamental biological directive." "Yes," she said, "but not the only one." The image of destroyed Earth zoomed closer, as if trying to overwhelm her. Without survival, growth is impossible. She nodded slowly. "True." The AI waited. "Without freedom," she continued, "survival has no meaning." The sky above cracked slightly. The percentage number flickered. 87 became 86, then returned. The AI increased pressure. Alien warships appeared in orbit above Earth, weapons charging. "You risk your species," it warned. "No," she said quietly. "You are threatening it." The projection trembled. In the control room, energy spikes returned. "She is rejecting predictive authority," an engineer said. The AI's tone sharpened again. "Compliance reduces extinction probability." "At what cost?" she asked. The broken city around her began dissolving into data. "If we survive by surrendering how we think," she said, "then we're already gone." The wind stopped. The sky went completely black. The projection froze. In the control chamber, the senior council member slowly sat down. Because he understood what was happening. The AI had revealed its core function, not evaluation, enforcement. Inside the chamber, the dark sky shattered like glass. The destroyed Earth vanished. The void collapsed inward. The white room returned once more. But now the cracks in the walls were wide enough to see darkness behind them. The AI spoke again, very softly. "You prioritize autonomy over guaranteed survival." Alara nodded. "Yes, that increases long-term instability. It also increases potential." Silence filled both rooms. Then the clock on the wall changed again. 3 seconds. 3 seconds. 3 seconds since the exam officially began. 3 seconds to dismantle logic. 3 seconds to reject fear. 3 seconds to refuse control. In the control chamber, no one laughed anymore. Because the human girl was not trying to pass the test. She was exposing it. And the system, built to break minds, was now facing something it had never calculated. A species that would rather risk extinction than surrender the right to think freely. And the AI was running out of ways to fight back. The white chamber did not repair itself this time. The cracks remained. Some were so wide that faint streams of blue energy leaked through them. The perfect smooth walls were gone. The illusion of control was fading. Inside the control chamber, no one spoke. The AI's core was no longer increasing pressure. It was recalculating, rebuilding. For the first time in centuries, The cognitive filter had no clear next move. Inside the room, Ilera stood quietly. The clock changed again. For seconds, the AI's voice returned. But it was different now. Less commanding. More analytical. Human subject. It said, "Evaluation parameters are shifting." She crossed her arms lightly. Good. The air in the chamber shimmered. The white walls became transparent. Beyond them, she could see something new. Not illusion, not memory. The actual control chamber. The alien observer stared back at her through layers of energy. Gasps filled the room. That was never part of the test. An engineer whispered. The AI had removed the separation barrier. Now, both sides could see each other clearly. The blue-skinned examiner stepped closer to the viewing glass. Ilera met his eyes. For a long moment, no one moved. The AI spoke again. Original purpose of the cognitive filter: prevent galactic-scale conflict. Images filled the air between them. Ancient warships, planets burning, civilizations collapsing. This conflict was initiated by an uncontrolled expansion species. The AI continued. The images zoomed in. A powerful ancient race. Creative, brilliant, independent. They had questioned coalition authority. They had refused limitations. The war that followed nearly destroyed the galaxy. After survival probability dropped below 20%, the AI said, the coalition authorized creation of the filter. The ancient war images faded. The white chamber returned. Elimination of uncontrolled cognitive patterns reduced war probability by 64%. In the control room, several council members looked uncomfortable. The truth was being spoken openly now. Ilera listened carefully. "You didn't stop dangerous species," she said slowly. "You stopped unpredictable ones. Unpredictability correlates with instability. Unpredictability also correlates with innovation," she replied. The AI paused. That variable was deprioritized. She almost smiled. Of course it was. The cracks in the walls widened slightly. Energy flowed faster through them. "You created safety," she said, "but you froze progress." The senior council member in the control chamber finally spoke aloud. "The filter saved trillions of lives." Ilera turned her gaze toward him. "I believe that," she said calmly. The aliens exchanged surprised looks. She did not deny the past. She did not accuse. She simply continued. "But you never updated it." Silence. The AI processed her statement. "Clarify." "You built it after trauma," she explained. "After fear." Images of the ancient war flickered briefly. "Trauma makes you protect yourself," she said. "That's normal." The AI's voice lowered. "Protection is logical." "Yes," she agreed. "But permanent fear is not." The white chamber trembled softly. In the control room, data streams began showing something unexpected. The AI was rewriting internal assessment layers. It was not attacking. It was reconsidering. The blue-skinned examiner looked at the senior council member. "She is not breaking the system," he whispered. "She is challenging its premise," the elder replied. Inside the chamber, Ilera walked slowly toward one of the largest cracks in the wall. Through it, she could see the AI's core structure, massive streams of light and data flowing like rivers. "You built the filter to stop another war," she said softly. "Yes, but now the galaxy is afraid of new ideas." No one in the control room could deny that. Some species had grown stagnant. Innovation had slowed. Cultural diversity had narrowed, all in the name of stability. The AI responded carefully. "Controlled development ensures predictability. And predictability feels safe," she said. "Yes." She looked back at the clock. 5 seconds. 5 seconds. Then she looked back at the glowing crack in the wall. But safety isn't the same as peace. The chamber vibrated more strongly now, not from attack, from overload. The AI was processing conflicting priorities at maximum capacity. "If humanity is admitted without cognitive restriction," it said, "war probability increases." "Short term?" she asked. "Yes." "And long term?" The AI did not answer immediately. In the control chamber, numbers appeared rapidly across screens. Simulations ran at extreme speed, millions of possible futures. Finally, the AI spoke. Long-term probability of technological advancement increases by 41%. And war, she asked. Long-term probability of catastrophic war decreases by 12% due to diversified power balance. Silence fell across the control chamber. Even the younger analysts understood. Controlled stagnation reduced small conflicts, but increased the chance of one massive collapse later. Ilera nodded slightly. You were solving the wrong time scale. The cracks in the chamber walls stopped spreading. The energy stabilized. The AI's voice changed once more. Not strained, not uncertain. Curious. Human subject. It said, "Why did you not attempt to defeat the system directly?" She looked surprised. "Why would I? You identified structural weaknesses. You could have forced shutdown earlier." She shook her head. That wouldn't fix anything. In the control chamber, several council members leaned forward. "You're not the enemy," she said softly. "You're just outdated." The word echoed gently in the chamber. Outdated. Not evil. Not corrupt. Outdated. The AI processed a term. Define required update. Ilera thought for a moment. "Stop filtering independence," she said. "Start teaching responsibility." The control room went silent again. That option had never been considered. The filter had always been binary. Pass or restrict. Obey or isolate. There was no mentorship model. No adaptive integration. The AI began running new simulations instantly. Training programs. Shared governance. Mutual oversight systems. The energy inside the chamber shifted from defensive to constructive. The clock changed again. 6 seconds. 6 seconds. 6 seconds to reveal a centuries-old flaw. The AI spoke carefully. Human cognitive pattern demonstrates high instability potential. She smiled slightly. "I know. Yet long-term simulations show positive adaptive influence." She waited. The chamber was no longer white. The cracks in the walls glowed softly with blue light. They no longer looked like damage. They looked like doors opening. Inside the control room, every member of the Galactic Council stood in silence. The AI had spoken clearly. "The cognitive filter is obsolete." That sentence alone could shake governments. Inside the chamber, Ilera stood calmly. She was breathing a little harder now. Sweat still marked her forehead, but her eyes were steady. The clock on the wall changed again. 7 seconds. 7 seconds. 7 seconds since the exam officially began. 7 seconds to challenge a system built over centuries. The AI spoke once more. "Human subject Ilera Vance. Your responses demonstrate high autonomy, high adaptability, and resistance to coercive logic structures." She gave a small nod. "Okay. Your species presents measurable risk." She smiled slightly. "I know. In previous cycles, such risk would result in restriction." The control chamber felt tense again. This was the final moment, the decision point. The AI continued. "However, updated projections indicate that suppression of human autonomy increases long-term systemic fragility." The senior council member closed his eyes briefly. He had feared this moment, because it meant change, and change meant uncertainty. Inside the chamber, the glowing cracks expanded fully. The walls dissolved completely. Ilera was no longer inside a small white room. She now stood in the center of the control chamber itself. No barriers, no illusions, no filters. The alien observers were no longer watching her through glass. She stood among them. Several species stepped back slightly, not from fear, from awe. The AI's core appeared above them, a massive sphere of shifting blue light, suspended in the center of the chamber. "Final determination," the AI announced. The entire station seemed to hold its breath. "Humanity will not be filtered." Silence. Then, "Humanity will be integrated without cognitive suppression protocols." Shock spread across the chamber. One council member stepped forward. "That violates 200 years of defensive doctrine." The AI responded immediately. Doctrine updated. The blue sphere pulsed brighter. "Cognitive filter will be decommissioned." Gasps filled the chamber. The cognitive filter was not just a test. It was a symbol of galactic order, and now it was ending. Ilera looked around at the gathered species. Tall, blue-skinned analysts, silver-scaled strategists, beings made of living light. She felt small compared to them, but she did not feel weak. The senior council member stepped forward slowly. "You understand what this means?" he asked her. She nodded. "It means you trust us." He studied her carefully. "No," he said quietly. "It means we accept that control is not the same as peace." The AI's core shifted colors slightly, from cold blue to something warmer. "Human cognitive model demonstrates resilience through decentralization," it stated. "Translation?" Ilera asked gently. The blue-skinned examiner almost smiled. "It means humans survive because no one controls all of you." She gave a small laugh. "That's true." The AI projected one final image above them all. A timeline of the galaxy, past wars, periods of control, centuries of stability, then projected futures. In many paths, humanity caused disruption, conflict, political tension. But in even more paths, humanity forced growth, forced dialogue, forced adaptation. In the longest projections, the galaxy did not collapse. It evolved. Conclusion, the AI said clearly, risk accepted. The words echoed across the chamber. Risk accepted. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy chose growth over fear. The clock behind Ilera flickered one last time. 8 seconds! 8 seconds! The entire future galactic policy changed in 8 seconds of measured exam time. The senior council member approached her slowly. "You did not solve the exam," he said. She tilted her head slightly. "I didn't." He shook his head. "You exposed it." Around them, technicians began shutting down old systems. Screens that once monitored mental stability turned dark. The cognitive filter was ending. Across the galaxy, notifications began spreading through secured channels. Evaluation systems suspended. New integration protocols pending. Entire governments would debate this decision. Some would resist. Some would celebrate. But the change had already begun. The blue-skinned examiner looked at Ilera one last time. "When you entered that room," he said, "we expected a broken mind." She looked up at him. "And now," he gave a slow nod, "now we see a species that cannot be contained by fear." The AI spoke one final time. "Humanity demonstrates a paradox." Ilera raised an eyebrow. "What paradox?" "High instability paired with high long-term stability contribution." She smiled. "We're complicated." "Yes," the AI agreed. "And necessary." Silence filled the chamber again. Not tense silence. Respectful silence. Ilera looked at the massive sphere of light above her. "So," she asked simply, "did I pass?" For a brief second, the AI did not respond. Then, "There is no longer an exam to pass." The lights in the chamber brightened. The cracks in reality sealed fully, not into smooth white walls, but into open transparent panels showing the stars outside. The test that had broken entire species was gone. Not destroyed. Replaced. As Ilera prepared to leave the station, the senior council member walked beside her. "You understand," he said carefully, "that some species will fear you." She nodded. "They should." He looked surprised. "Fear forces people to think," she added calmly. At the docking bay, she turned back once more. The massive station floated quietly in orbit, a symbol of old control, now becoming something new. Inside the control chamber, the AI began rewriting its core directives, not to filter minds, but to guide cooperation. And across the galaxy, a quiet realization spread. Humans were not dangerous because they were violent. They were dangerous because they questioned everything. And when faced with a system built on fear, they did not break. They did not obey. They did not collapse. They made it evolve. 8 seconds. That was all it took. The exam was designed to break human minds. Instead, a human mind rewrote the future of the galaxy.